At 9:47 p.m., Emma Carter stood outside Chicago's Union Station and almost went home. The cold cut through her coat, sharp and honest, like the truth she'd been avoiding all day. 1 year since the divorce. 1 year since the quiet apartment. Stopped feeling temporary. She told herself she would not spend this night alone. She did not tell herself how to do that. Inside the station, life moved fast. People hugged, argued, laughed, rushed. Trains arrived and left like nothing mattered, except the next stop. Emma took one step forward, then another, pulled by momentum more than courage. She didn't know it yet, but that small choice would stay with her for the rest of her life. Across the hall, Daniel Brooks checked the time and pretended it meant nothing. He had flown in from Toronto that morning for a job interview that ended with polite smiles and no promises. He should have gone straight to his hotel. Instead, he stood there, hands in his pockets, letting the noise drown out the weight in his chest. Traveling usually helped him forget. Tonight, it didn't. Their eyes met by accident. No sparks, no drama. Just a shared glance that lasted a second longer than it needed to. Emma looked away first, annoyed at herself for noticing a stranger. She believed in being careful now. Careful meant quiet. Careful meant alone. She walked toward the coffee stand and sat on a bench. The station smelled like steam and paper cups. She wrapped her scarf tighter, unaware it slipped loose and fell to the floor. Daniel noticed. He picked it up before doubt could stop him. He crossed the few steps between them and cleared his throat. "Hey," he said, gentle and unsure. "I think this is yours." Emma turned, surprised. "Oh, thank you. I didn't even realize." "No problem." He handed it back, then smiled, small and real. Cold night. "Chicago doesn't play nice in winter," she said. "Toronto either," he replied. "Just colder for no reason." She laughed, a quiet sound that surprised her more than him. The wall between strangers cracked just enough to let warmth through. They talked without effort. The weather, delays, bad coffee, safe topics that didn't ask for anything. Yet something eased in Emma's chest. Daniel listened like time wasn't pressing him forward, like this moment was enough. The station thinned as the hour passed. Announcements echoed louder. Emma checked her phone. No messages, no plans. For once, the loneliness didn't bite. It sat beside her, calm. "I was about to leave," she said, honest without meaning to be. "Didn't want to go home tonight." "Same," Daniel said. "My hotel room feels too quiet." The pause between them wasn't awkward. It was careful, respectful. "There's a diner across the street," Emma said, surprising herself. "It's warm. It's nothing fancy." Daniel searched her face, making sure. "I'd like that," he said. "If you're sure, I'm sure." Snow had started to fall, light and steady, as if the city had softened its voice. They walked side by side, close enough to share the sidewalk, far enough to keep space. Emma noticed how calm she felt. Daniel noticed how easy it was to smile. The diner was bright and simple. Vinyl booths, old photos on the wall. The kind of place that didn't ask questions. They slid into a booth and ordered coffee. Steam rose between them like a small promise. They talked faster now, the way people do when they realize time is short. Emma spoke about rebuilding her life, about learning how to be alone without feeling lost. Daniel spoke about chasing work across borders, about missing birthdays and dinners and moments that didn't wait. There was attraction, but it stayed quiet. No leaning in, no touching, just attention. Care, the kind that feels rare because it is. The check arrived, neither reached for it. They both laughed at the same time, surprised. "I should head back." Daniel said, "Early flight." Emma nodded, even though something tugged at her. "Yeah, me too." Outside, the snow had settled. The streetlights turned it silver. They stood facing each other, unsure how to end a night neither of them planned. "This was nice," Emma said. "It was," Daniel agreed. More than nice. They exchanged numbers. Simple, careful. When they hugged, it was brief and warm, the kind that lingers after it ends. Then they went their separate ways. At home, Emma lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She told herself it was just a good night. A reminder. Her phone sat nearby, full of quiet. In his hotel room, Daniel packed slowly. He replayed her laugh, her honesty, the way the city felt softer with her in it. He wondered if meeting her was luck or a test. Morning came fast. Texted once, then again, messages turned thoughtful, then personal. Days passed. Distance hovered like a question. Weeks later, Daniel sent a message that made Emma's heart race. "I'm coming back to Chicago next month." No reason. Just thought you should know. She read it twice and smiled, knowing this was only the beginning and that some nights never really end. 3 weeks after that winter night, Emma Carter was standing in line at a grocery store when her phone buzzed, and everything inside her went still. She didn't need to look at the screen to know it was Daniel. Somehow, she always knew. She stepped out of line, heart beating faster than it should for something so simple. Daniel Brooks was back in Toronto. Back in routines that felt familiar and wrong at the same time. He worked during the day, answered emails, nodded in meetings, and told everyone the trip to Chicago was fine. But every night, when the city outside his apartment went quiet, his thoughts went back to Union Station, to a woman who felt like a pause he hadn't known he needed. Their messages had grown from polite to personal, without either of them noticing. When the shift happened, he talked about childhood memories, favorite songs, moments they regretted, and choices they were still afraid to make. There was no pretending, no games, just honesty, moving fast, as if both knew time might not be. Emma told herself not to hope. Hope had burned her before. Still, she found herself checking her phone more than she wanted to admit, smiling at his words, rereading them when the nights felt long. He never pushed, never promised. That made it harder than one evening as rain tapped against her apartment window. Daniel sent a message that changed the rhythm of her week. "I'm coming back to Chicago next month. No big reason. I just thought you should know." Emma stared at the screen, breath caught somewhere between excitement and fear. She typed, erased, typed again. "I'm glad you told me." That was all she sent. It was enough. The weeks moved fast after that. Emma noticed the city differently. Cafes felt warmer. Streets felt familiar in a new way. She wondered where she might take him. What places mattered to her now? She also wondered how it would feel to say goodbye again. Daniel booked the flight. Without telling anyone, he told himself it was just a visit. It's a chance to see a friend. But his chest tightened every time he thought of her smile. The way she listened, like the world slowed down around her. When the day came, Chicago welcomed him with clear skies and sharp air. Emma met him outside a small coffee shop near the river. For a moment, they stood still, unsure how to greet each other now that this was real. Then they smiled, and the space between them disappeared. This time the city felt like a witness. They walked for hours, talking easily, letting silence come when it wanted to. They shared meals, stories, and long looks that said more than words. The connection felt deeper now, heavier with meaning. They both felt it and pretended not to. At night, when Daniel returned to his hotel, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about distance and choices. Emma did the same in her apartment, phone resting on her chest, wondering how something so gentle could feel so dangerous. On his last evening, they sat by Lake Michigan. The water was dark and calm, reflecting the city lights like broken stars. The wind was cold, but neither moved away. "This feels unfair," Emma said quietly. "How easy this feels." Daniel nodded. Easy doesn't always mean simple. Both knew what waited at the end of the night. Flights, borders, lives that didn't line up neatly. "I don't want to pretend this doesn't matter," Daniel said, "but I don't know how to make it work." Emma looked out at the water, then back at him. I don't want promises we can't keep. The truth settled between them, heavy but honest. They talked about options without forcing decisions. Moving was too much. Long distance felt uncertain. Letting go felt painful. In the end, they chose something quieter. They chose to let this be real without forcing it to become forever. When they said goodbye at the station, the hug lasted longer this time. Still clean, still respectful. But filled with everything they couldn't say after Daniel left. Emma cried for the first time since her divorce. Not from loss, but from gratitude. She had felt something again, fully, that mattered. Back in Toronto, Daniel threw himself into work. He stopped checking his phone every minute, then started again. Some nights they talked. Some nights they didn't. Life slowly reclaimed its space. Months passed. Emma took a new job, painted her walls, learned to enjoy her own company again. Sometimes when snow fell, she thought of that first night and smiled. Daniel accepted a position closer to home. He traveled less, stated once or twice, but never with the same ease. He didn't compare, he remembered. They stayed in touch, gently, without pressure. Birthday messages, late-night check-ins, quiet support during hard weeks. Years later, Emma would stand in Union Station again. Older, steadier, watching strangers cross paths. She would wonder how many lives changed without knowing it. Daniel would sometimes pass through Chicago on work trips, always glancing toward the diner across the street. Remembering warmth on a cold night, they never became what people might expect. But they became something rare, a reminder that love doesn't always arrive to stay. Sometimes it comes to teach, to heal, to prove that hearts can open again, and that one night, two strangers, and a single brave decision can echo through a lifetime softly, beautifully, forever.